Today I'm going to bring you the review that no one asked for, but I can't help but do because I'm super impressed with this. I don't do case reviews unless they really surprise me. This is the Lian Li Land Cool 2. Kind of a dumb name, but I'm going to tell you right now, when we did this build at Micro Center in our last video, we talked about doing a review of this case because Phil and I are both truly impressed at what you get with this case at its price point, which makes me think other case manufacturers should definitely be listening to Lian Li. NZXT is proud to announce their all-new Kraken Z Series Aao featuring a 2.3-inch 24-bit customizable LCD screen, allowing the users to completely customize the look of their cooler. Capable of displaying useful system info and temperatures, the LCD screen can also play GIFs and custom images, giving the users the freedom to truly customize their experience. To learn more about the NZXT Kraken Z Series, head to the link in the description below.
All right, I'm rolling and action.
Like a cat. Okay, I know I said cheap in the title, and cheap is completely subjective. But at the time we built this at Micro Center, this case was 89 bucks. I explained why in that video, why we chose this case. It comes with 3 case fans that, well, I would say they don't suck, but they do if you have them as a pull fan, and they blow really hard. Now let's start with the obvious stuff, and I know it's a black case, so I'm doing the best I can to light this so you guys can see it. The ventilation is plentiful, if you will. So enough so that Steve might hate it less than other things he hates more. So it's one of those things where it's not just round holes or just a grill cut or a mesh or a hex, which is overdone in my opinion. This has what Phil calls kind of like an imperial grating look. It's got these sort of like alternating long oblong slits, but we've got vents right here between the shroud and the main chamber with 2 120mm fan mounts. There is room to mount a fan right there and still a radiator on top if I was to reroute that. So I could actually have a 240 mounted rad, 240 or a 280 because it fits 2 140s or 120s. We could fit a 360 in the front or a 420 in the front. And I'll show you that in a sec. But we've obviously got a rear fan here that's only 120mm capable. We've got the front. Let's talk about the front because when it comes to ventilation, this is where a lot of companies have started adopting this more kind of a solid front panel, but there's a lot of airflow that comes through this, and I'll demonstrate that once we fire the system up. But if we take this panel off, you can see, although it has RGB lighting built into the front here, it does it through these pogo contacts that are spring-loaded. That's why they're called pogo, because they push against this, and that's where it gets its power. Now, not only that, this also has on the backside a pigtail ready to go to add more lighting strips to it if you want to. So this is addressable. That's one thing to keep in mind though. It's not 12 volt, it is addressable, so it's a 3-pin. And you can plug this into a motherboard with addressable RGB and take control over your case, or if you don't, like the instance of the motherboard we used here, it's got its own lighting control up here on top that you can use to adjust colors and such. But if you look at the ventilation, this is the way we have it configured. There's plenty of airflow that actually comes through this, because as you can see, because it's got this sort of a kind of a concave shape, it has a bigger volume of air in there than if this were flat right in front of the fans. Now it also has filters that are normally in there that we took out, and they are silver on this side, which is the side that would face out. And the idea behind that is it gives the lighting something to sort of bounce off of. So you can kind of see the silver through there now a little bit, which matches the silver Lian Li on the bottom. Now by doing this, moves us on to the next thing to talk about with ventilation, and that being this front piece right here. So this front piece, I can't take it out because the fans are already wired and zip tied in. This front piece is a bracket that you can fit your fans onto or your radiator. But if you look, this is flush, which means that you wouldn't have that much room between the fans and this to keep from choking off the air. Because the closer the fan gets to the material, the less gap it has to pull air through, the less pressure, the less flow. But there are 2 screws up here on the top that give you 3 positions that you can mount this by moving it back. Now by moving it back means you can fit either a 360 slim rad right here, and then you can put on the inside, you can mount your fans by removing this cover. Gives you up to like 80 millimeters of thickness that you can see right here. But by moving this whole bracket inward, because it does reposition inward, you could fit your fans on this side of it and a 30mm radiator and push-pull fans, so 30 or 25mm fans in front of it, or pull fans with a 60mm rad. and then not interfere with anything up top. Because look at all this room we have right here because we only have a 240 or a 280 up here, which is not gonna interfere with putting a deep rad or fans. So in terms of water cooling, for this being a standard ATX chassis, it's extremely modular and extremely well thought out. These are things that you don't typically see in a case that's under $100. This is the kind of things you see in cases that are closer to $200 or at least $150 and up. But for 89 bucks, it really makes me wonder how the heck Lian Li is doing it. Now, because this is considered a full ATX chassis, its overall size and footprint is probably more so of like, if I had to compare it size-wise, I'd say it's very similar to like an H510 from NZXT. Considered more of a mid-tower, not a full tower, and which usually means you're not gonna be able to fit things like EATX chassis. Well, you can actually, because what we found, and I think I should be able to do this with the system assembled, it's one of those things like, if you do a walk around at the case with it not assembled, you can talk about all the features, but some of the features don't make sense once you go to building them. You're like, okay, this technically says you can do this, but you know, it doesn't do it very well. So I'm gonna take my iFixer. There are 2 screws up here on this plate, but if you take this out and you flip it, and I'm trying to do this now with, I have something zip tied to it. Okay, I gotta undo my install. Oh, I have one of the Velcros. Okay, so before I can take that out, again, because it's built in, let me show you the back panel. It cheats. It uses all these covers everywhere so that you can hide all of your ugly wiring. Some people might say that that's cheating. I'll cheat every single day if my systems can look this clean. So I've got this zip tie going through there right now. So as you can see, it's got zip tie wire management, or not zip tie, but Velcro. Apparently I use Verge terminology and don't call things by what they're called.
They're tweezers.
They're tweezers, yeah, that's right. So I can pull that out and undo all my cable management. And you can see that the part that covers the cables is closer to the motherboard. But you can flip it 180 and it moves it outward, which means you can fit an EATX board at that point. Now look how much more clearance we have to fit an EATX motherboard. Something that doesn't usually happen with the case at this form factor at this price point. Which is why I told Phil, we have to show the audience this case. This is a case worth talking about. Drives are sleds that lock in there. So they are easy to get your drives in and out. They click in there, you get 3 of them. Those obviously will fit either 2.5 inch or 3.5 inch. So that gives us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 2.5s that you can fit in here, or 5 3.5s. And if you want to use double-sided sticky tape, you can fit a whole bunch of SSDs right here. Ta-da! Oh, I did it backwards. And because it's got these giant openings right here, which don't have grommets. That's the one thing I wish they'd done grommets right here, to know the truth. That's like really the only critique I have about this case. Rubber grommets would be nice. You could just put like easily 3 of them. 1, 2, 3 right there. So you could fit 10 2.5 inch drives. In terms of graphics card, because this thing does not stick up any higher than where the motherboard socket is, like the slot for the PCIe, you could fit a graphics card that's long enough that would like, well, I don't know how many millimeters it is. It probably says in the manual. I don't have it in front of me. Now, moving along to the back here. In terms of expandability though, you do get, well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 slots, which is pretty standard for ATX of expansion there, whether it be sound cards and all that sort of stuff. Obviously, that's going to depend on your motherboard. But if we look in the back here, we have another cover right here. And there's another feature under there that I found while we were building that I wasn't even expecting, but I've run into this issue before, which made me really excited about this. It's got this little cover, which technically you could also, or you could be like, I really don't get why this is here unless it's just, Phil called it the Commander Pro mount, like just tape it to it, right? But in terms of the cable management, this gives you a stupid amount of cheating to just be like, okay, look, it's even got this notch right here, right? So when I've got my cable right here going to my, oh, that's for the cooler. I just kind of stuck it through that notch, left it inside there, and then just, you know, shoved it down. This covers, where's the screw? That ugliness. Which is why when you first saw that we started this video, the only thing you could see was the pretty SSD and the 2 cables running to it, because everything else was under all these cheater covers. Things that, again, For 90 bucks, I'm not sure how they're able to do this, because every time you take a piece of steel like this and then you've got to have a bend so it goes into like this machine that's like a press brake, and the thing comes down and bends it, right? And every time there's a bend or a drill hole or a thread, it adds cost to manufacturing and tooling. Let's talk about this drive cage down here. But if you look down here, there's all these holes. So there's 1, 2, because it's covering 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9? And this is on a sled or like a track. So you can move this forward and back. It's kind of hard right now because the cables are hitting it. So depending on the length of your power supply and you want to run a front radiator, you can move this back and then you can have room for your radiator. All right, so now I'm gonna go ahead and put this all back together, because one of the other things we have to talk about still is airflow. It's like, okay, Jay, all this stuff is cool, but if it's not cool, then none of it matters, right? You're absolutely correct. So let me put this back together, get it all exactly how I had it, so that we can then measure and see how well the airflow does. So in terms of ventilation though on the top as well, the radiator is offset. So what that allows us is to take our 120 millimeter radiator and have it pushed to the edge of the case so that it doesn't interfere with our motherboard. Because a lot of motherboards have tall heat sinks now, which can interfere with radiators and fans once they hang down. Or you can install them in a more traditional slot if you want. There's slots there and there, so you could go right down the middle if they're just fans. The only thing is, like, in terms of build order, it makes sense to put your motherboard in and then attach all your cables before you do the radiator, which I didn't do. So of course I was all like trying to get up in there. Before we do our airflow test, why don't we also talk about connectivity? That's our color button, and M is for mode. So C is color, M is mode, that's our controller. We've got a reset button, a power button, headphone jack, which is a combo jack, 2 USB 3.0, and then what would have been a C. So I've got the front filters on here. I've taken the top filter off. It's just magnetic, so it just goes there. But I hate these filters, and this one's got some creases in it because I haven't been too nice to it. So if you look at it kind of at an angle, you can see there's like some creases in there, which is really ugly. So I just would rather look at the mesh top. Okay, so it's kind of ghetto, but what I've done here is I've taped a paper towel because it has a little bit of weight. If it can lift it, then we know it's got good static pressure. In front of the front 2 fans. If you hear any fan noise, by the way, I had that black fan going over there because outside there's a semi truck and the sound is bugging me. So that white noise is stopping the truck from pissing me off. Let's talk about the way these fans are connected. So the top 2 fans are connected to Corsair, which is controlled through iQ. This does not have an operating system installed on it yet. So this is only gonna be motherboard control and whatever the default control is for the top fans through the H100i Pro, whatever it is. And then the rear fan is connected to the motherboard chassis header. The front 2 are actually connected to CPU and CPU optional. With all that said, what happens? That's being sucked in. Oh, wait a minute.
Did you mount that?
I mounted that fan backwards. All right, here we go, take 2. This time I have a keyboard and a mouse because I'm gonna go into the BIOS because I'm like, well, it's probably gonna go to like the super silent setting out of the box. So let's go ahead and turn this back on. That fan is now flipped around. Oh yeah, look at that, it's actually moving. Now the top one is kind of sad because by default, the Corsair does go right to its lowest RPM setting, which is kind of sad, but you can adjust all that with iQ later. So if I want to see right now, if I just pop this front cover off, does that go up more? A little bit, right? So how much of that is going to be these front filters?
Just the panel.
Yeah. So it definitely does affect airflow. There's no doubt about it. It's not solid. All the fans are running really slow. So let's do this. I'm just gonna go to fan speed control, full speed. See, we're getting slightly positive. You can see it kind of pushing out a little bit.
Positive pressure seems like it's actually impeding the airflow because of the fact that the case, that front can flow so much in.
Until the radiator fans ramp up,
Right.
Which I can't do right now. Honestly, this is plenty of airflow. And these fans are so quiet because they're the stock ones, right? They say 1500 RPM, but they really are quiet. So anyway, I just wanted to share this particular system or this case with you guys because I'm telling you right now, what you get for the price to me is extremely just shocking. The how thought out it is in terms of installation, the modularity, the fact that it can fit big components, big graphics cards, big motherboards, and things that you typically wouldn't find in this form factor. By form factor, I mean mid-tower. It's got decent enough airflow, and by putting in better fans later on, you can even improve that. All right, well, you know what? That's kind of just our really unprofessional kind of a walk round of this case, the Landcool 2 from Lian Li. I'm telling you right now, this is my new recommendation for if someone's like, I got $100 or less to spend on a case. Other manufacturers need to be paying attention because typically you're not going to get anywhere close to this level of modularity. The fact that we could fit an EATX motherboard if we want. The fact that we could fit like a 400mm graphics card, which means we could take something like the gigantic Strix or the Trio or something like that and shove it in here, and it's going to have plenty of airflow, not impede with anything at the bottom. You could fit a 240, a 280, or another 240, or a 360, or a 420 up in the front and water cool the crap out of this. And then by taking out the hard drive cage at the bottom, you still have room down there for your pump and all that stuff. Or you can attach it to the front of the radiator in the front, fill in. The options on this are insane. And like I said, you can fit natively 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yeah, 6, 7. So you can natively fit 7 2.5-inch SSDs. All right, you guys tell me what you think about this case right here. Like I said, I know I said cheap in the description or in the title, but that's because to me, what you get for this chassis, for that price, makes it definitely a value. So you guys tell me what you think of this case. It also comes in white. I almost got the white one, which would have been a lot easier for you to film today. But I got the black one because I wanted to go for this kind of a blacked out look. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. And as always, we'll see you in the next one.